but the results are good. Like critics are talking about it. Uh, we got finally to be finalists on Big Festival, which is a festival in São Paulo. We traveled there, and we got to know everybody in the industry, right? We got to be like feel like we are on this community. But it was our first game. We learned so much. We thought like we could do so much better, and so we did like a lot of prototypes. Again, the prototype that stuck was Dandara, and was mobile again. Yay! Because it was easy to publish. Like we don't know how to do a console game, like zero idea how to do that. And but we want to do that later. And there was like, I don't know if you know about Steam. At the time, you needed to do like a campaign, a marketing campaign to gather votes to be able to launch on Steam. We didn't want to do no marketing campaign, right? We wanted to learn how to make a good game this time. So we're like, let's just do a mobile game again. And that's the initial pitch, like straight jumps because it's based on the swiping gesture. And you have to like circle around this enemy to hit it on its back. And that was sounds like fun. Let's do it. There was walking, but like we iterated on it and removed that. I'll show the game later, I guess. And yeah, we still keep like being native for mobile. You see like the game evolving from here to here to here. And it's a game that rewards your attention, right? The market, like for games, for mobile games, really tells you like you should make a game that you can play with your one hand. You should make a game that you can like wait on the bus while playing the game, not really paying attention and all that. And we didn't want to do that because we want to do console games later. And we thought like, if you do something different, really different than everyone is saying that you should do, some people would be craving for that, right? Like, that's different. And that would be the novelty, right? It started as an arena brawler, but like it started putting doors to separate the arenas, so Dandara could enter a door, and implemented that. So we started thinking about two doors at the same time, the same arena to two different places, and it started to be an exploration game again, where like you have to go forward and then you go, and then sometimes you backtrack to a place you were before. We love that stuff. We love playing that, so that's what we did. And more things that happened. I mean, we were finalists on the big festival again. We got published by a Swedish company called Raw Fury, which in turn helped us go to consoles. So it was like in our second game already consoles. It was amazing. And after launch, we made an expansion called Trials of Fear, like using all the criticism of the launch and all that, like 2 more years. And I think like we wrapped up the game really well. And the game like got a physical launch. You know, we could like this one. I have it. I didn't really open it yet, but yeah, I can touch the game. It's like a sign of good things. And Time magazine, like they said like the best video games of 2018, and they put us in there. There was like Spider-Man for PS4 and God of War. Like, wow, we went to the bar, we went to the ice cream place to commemorate it, and it was great. So then, Connor, can I tell you to show the trailer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I cannot do sound from my computer.
Oh,
I can show the trailer. Like, this is the trailer.
Okay. I could also show it if you'd like me to.
Yeah. I can like show the trailer without any sound, so you can see how the game plays.
Sure.
Like it's like that, you jump from place to place, like zigzagging. So it's like a game like that. When you look at the screenshot, it looks like you're gonna walk and just like Mario or something, but it's nothing like that. It's a very different game. But if you want to show the trailer, maybe with sound, it's more exciting. Yes, do that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. It's showing right now, I think.
Yeah, but
The sound's not coming through.
Yeah, the sound's not coming through.
Okay, I can give it a shot.
All right.
Give me 1 sec. I just gotta pull it up. Also, just like one thing I gotta say, having actually played the game, the movement is like every bit as fluid and like enjoyable as it looks in the trailer. I feel like that's really the thing that comes off as special to me about it.
Thank you a lot.
Zipping around for it's not like it's been a while since I played it. I don't remember if there's a fast travel system, but if there was, I never wanted to use it because it's so much more fun to just zip from place to place.
That's a different feedback that I normally get.
Oh, really?
People really want the fast travel right away. I just want the fast travel. But this is a different trailer than the one I was showing, so it's more exciting this way. It's like the trailer for the expansion, but it shows the game.
Which one should I show?
This one, I sent you the link.
Oh, you sent a link. Got it.
Yeah.
All right, finally got it set up.
Thanks, Connor.
No problem. Y'all seeing this?
This is the expansion. Thank you, Connor. And this is the game, kind of. And there's two things that I think are interesting about it, and they do like have a nice parallel to them. So I'm gonna talk a bit about the mechanics, but just a bit, and I'm gonna go full out on the culture of the game because it's also a different thing. So the mechanics, like we wanted to do something native to the touchscreen, like the touchscreen. People always say like they don't have the same haptic feedback of the controller. You can't feel like your fingers. The feedback that you press when you press a button is different. But I think like the touchscreen can do a lot of stuff that the controller can't. And by trying to do that, by trying to like use what the touchscreen does good, we had to create a very new experience, right? And do something different. We didn't want to do those little things that you draw on top of the screen. Like it feels like a port. It feels bad to play. I really don't like it. So we want to do something cool. And reference wouldn't help. Like we would be called a type of game called a Metroidvania. And we tried like we ourselves labeled ourselves as that. And we tried to like, okay, let's get an enemy from Metroid or something, or this enemy and their behavior, and let's apply that to Dandara because they have all the baggage, game design baggage and all that, but never works, right? Because the game is so different and you have to iterate over it, and it forces you to like go to ground zero, like never use something, naturally avoids you looking into other games for inspiration, which is really cool. It's really difficult, and it's a lot of work, but it's really cool that forces you to make something new. And it requires a lot of back and forth iterations. Like we changed something on the game design, like the distance that Dandara can jump to, and that's made us change the levels and the behavior of the enemies, and that made us change the game design again, and creates like a spiral of changes that you have to do. And all games do that, but when you start from scratch and don't have reference, you have to do that a lot. That's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, because when something clicks and like, wow, this is fun, I never experienced it, then it's the best feeling ever, and really like it. And the gamepads, right? For some clients, the gamepads didn't feel right until we iterated on it a lot. There was a lot of worrying, like, oh my God, is people gonna think this is a part? Because we are going to the consoles, right? After Raw Fury. But we only felt satisfied when we added mirroring to the directions. I mean, the crystal is like where your stick is pointing at. And when you point to the ground, it helps you aiming up, it mirrors. So to make the zigzag motion that you do all the time on the game, you just need to like hold on one direction and press A all the time. Because before that, you needed to like do all these micro thinkings for every jump. Like, I need to move my finger and then press A and then it again. That made it very boring compared to the touchscreen that you did it so naturally. But when it did this, like it clicked immediately. And then it was like a huge source of novelty and innovation, because it was a game that came from such a different like origin, made to the video games that is trying to make an experience to the consoles, like the same kind of experience. So it felt right on the console's lap, I guess. Felt right with that. It's a cultural expression. I tried to translate it, but it felt good, and it was a source of novelty. And of course, it can backfire. I mean, people just gonna not like the game. People are gonna expect one thing and then receive another. I got this random Steam reviews to show. They are really random, but it's totally a risk worth taking. You know, there's so many games, there's so many experiences out there, even more and more. You gotta stand out somehow, and it is a risk like can be mitigated. You can like make people expect something like more correct, because for example the first thing they touch in the game, they interact with in the game, is marketing. So you can make the marketing really not fool players, right? And you can make like the tutorial levels, the introduction levels be really like managing the expectation of the player, managing how they think while they play. Like it's a very art thing, and it's really cool. It can be mitigated and totally worth doing that. And the culture, right? The culture in the game is different. Like the first story we tried to came up with, like we started making the mechanics first, right? And like, what's the story that we're gonna do? And first thing we thought about was like Contra, like a military dude shooting aliens in space. That's awesome. I love it. Let's do that. Yes. And that would be, we started thinking that would be kind of generic, right? And the game's so different already. How can we do something new with it? And we started thinking about it, and I think growing like by watching Brazilian movies. Like this is a cultural thing. Like this is a very specific culture. For example, because Contra, normally we think like it's a normal game with no culture, right? And Brazilian games, no, those have culture, but it's kind of weird. No, for example, a Viking game is not a normal game at all. It's a very specific game as well, with a very specific culture. It's like a very cool kind of game. I love Viking games, but doing that as a Brazilian is has a problem about that because of culture, I think. And what it is, I don't think it's like you shouldn't do a game about another thing that you're interested in. Of course not. But I think you're gonna have a problem of like easiness and authenticity. Such a hard word to say. But I want to give an example about that. Lucas, my business partner, used to date Anna, a girl from Czech Republic, and he visited. It was a long distance relationship, and he visited her like 2 times. And he always told me that Prague is a super old city, and some of those buildings have like 1,000 years old. They are like huge. They are 1,000 years old, and you can really imagine like knights with their horses walking around with their swords and everything. Like you can feel the temperature they must be feeling, right? You can feel like the smell is because of the like how the art is humid or not. You can start imagining everything, like start imagining how they would dress at night or something like that. So much easier. And there are people like doing LARPs, right? Going like and battling, all of that because they are around it. It's about their culture, and it's so much easier. Like from talking about a medieval game, it's so much easier for a person from the Czech Republic, from Prague, to do a medieval game. Like you can do a medieval game, but to bring something new to the table in narrative, it's gonna be so much harder for us. We're gonna have to like, it's gonna be expensive to travel there. We're gonna have to do research. We're gonna have to imagine other things. Our personal experiences wouldn't be very useful, right? But people from Prague, they would totally like, they can research just by like going to the library or something. They can imagine everything. They have all these questions on their head. So they have, and the contrary is true, right? Doing a game about Belo Horizonte, like the city that I live, is way easier for me than for people that from Prague, right? We have this all this culture as well, all these buildings that have been built for a reason and all of that as well. And we have like a cool culture that you can like show it to other people. And that's it. Let's do it. Let's do it like something Brazilian, right? So let's try to do a historical adaptation. That's the first thing we thought about. And starting like looking for Brazilian conflicts to adapt. And okay, we arrived on the Quilombo dos Palmares. So I'm gonna explain what's the Quilombo real quick, real simple, which is way simpler than necessary maybe. But a Quilombo is it's a bunch of settlements that runaway enslaved people join together to fight slavery. So they would make this kind of like cities, bunch of cities, so they could resist together, right? And that's a Quilombo. There was a lot of Quilombos all over Brazil, all over Latin America, and Quilombo dos Palmares was one of the most notorious because it endured for 100 years of like constant battles and political decision making over them. It was like amazing. And the Quilombo dos Palmares has a lot of characters in it and one of them is Dandara dos Palmares. She's over here. Dandara dos Palmares is really cool because she was a woman on the 1700s that like fought on the 1600s actually, that fought against the crown. Like she led the battles, she organized the thing, the crops and all that. She organized the resistance. She was a strategist. She was a political thinker. She was awesome, but like this story was told by the Portuguese, like that was wrote by the Portuguese who defeated them in the end, and it was a very like they wouldn't respect everything. And Dandara dos Palmares, there's even debate if she was real or not, if she was just a legend. or all that, but like the name of Dandara has a lot of force to it, like a lot of strength to it. Like people are named after her even today. There are social movements named after her. There are like political movements named after her. She is really powerful to the Black and the woman movement in Brazil. So yeah, we thought like making an adaptation of the Quilombo dos Palmares story with Dandara dos Palmares inspiring the main character, like make an allegory, fantasy, right? But that story. But I mean, we decided not to. Like, really spent some time making the concept art of that, all of it, and really getting to know this character. But we decided not to make a historical adaptation because it would be it would just be a huge responsibility to the game. Like slavery, we would be talking about slavery in Brazil, and slavery in Brazil is like Brazil is not a country that treats its own history with slavery very well, like not good at all. And talking about it, you immediately gets a lot of responsibility because you don't want to mislead people, to lie to people. You don't want to do a bad research and all that. And as we are starting, and this was our second game, we were no writers. We felt like doing both those things, making a good game and making a really good, very respectful historical adaptation at the same time would be really daunting, really impossible for us. We would just be good at one of them and the other one would be like a failure, which isn't at all what we want, right? So we decided not to, and that's a pitfall. Like when you're doing a cultural game, like there's a lot of stories on Brazil. I gave you like all that thing about Prague. Like we have the advantage of doing something about Brazil because we are here, we are in Brazil, all that, and I think that's true. But when you get history, you start pulling out the strings, and the next thing you have a little bit less familiarity with it. Then next thing you have less. Soon you have none at all, and that's one of the things you gotta know. That you do your research, right? You have to do research to do any kind of history. Treat any kind of history with respect. You have to do research. There's no other way around it. But research is fun and all that, and proximity with history and culture give you better access to questions, not to answers, not to the information. Information, everyone's gonna have to research the same, right? Uh, and it brings a lot of responsibility. Like I said, you have to, like, history is a very precious thing. We have to do right to it. I think, and all right, we shifted from history to references, and we started making a more personal story, more symbolic, more like dreamlike story and all that, more open to interpretation. Like we were no writers, so we didn't want to write a lot of dialogue. So we wanted like the words to tell the history by showing it. More akin to the mechanics. The mechanics are very like crazy and jumping, like no gravity, but a dreamlike world kind of works for it. It's very good, and we can do like the very cool thing that's a tree upside down. I love it. The main character stayed though, like with her name as a reference to the real personality, and with all the meaning, and it works on the meaning of the story that we wanted to tell. Like you wanted like a freedom fighter that fight for others and all that, and have this meaning of uh, fighting oppression, right? She represented all that, and that was good. That reinforced the themes of the game, and we started like putting reference to all these kinds of other elements as well. And a lot of characters, not all of the characters, not all of the environments, but a lot of them. The game is about references, I think, in the end. And the reference, they do reinforce meanings and intentions. Like I said, Dandara, for example. You know what is shit about, what the story is gonna be as soon as you get what the reference is about, right? And they invite people to discover by themselves. Like they wonder, why is the game called Dandara? And then you go for it and you discover like a real person from another place that you never would go to, never would like imagine to reach about, right? And then you start to question yourself, is this other element something like a reference as well? And then you research about it and you discover that it is. And then yes, and the game is about exploration as well. And these invitations from references narratively is a kind of exploration that's really cool as well. So it goes well with the theme of the game of exploration. But of course, we do not require people to like get to know any reference, because that's boring. That feels like reading a sequel for a book without reading the first book. It's like, what? Right? We didn't want to do anything like that. Just invite people to get to know history and culture. Another research in another culture. This is pretty much a game made for everyone, not just Brazilians and all that. Everyone was on our minds. So yeah, there's another pitfall for that. We want to do this cultural game thing by adding references. That leads to a really quick pitfall, I think, because it's my experience from Brazil, right? When we talk about cultural things, you start to imagine, like, from school, interacted with this media that's like, oh, this is a very cultural thing, then it's folklore. And we interacted like that, like the cartoonish list of characters that don't like have any relationship with each other. Sometimes they have it even like, look at the dolphin, the poor pig dolphin's art is different from any other art. It's like we always see like that. They don't have a relationship because sometimes there are stories from native Brazilian people, sometimes there are stories from African enslaved people brought from Africa, and sometimes there are Portuguese, European stories. It's like a mishmash of things, but it's our mythology, and we think like, if we add everything to the game, like I have this list of things. If I add everything, then it's gonna be like our identity, a cultural identity, and that's bad. That's a really quick way to like stereotyping your own culture. And don't treat your culture as a checklist that you have to mark and all that. What I think, like, my recommendation is like, ask yourself, and that goes for every media, right? Ask yourself for each element of the game, which cultural reference it is the most. Like, let the game ask for it. Don't like forcing it into the game before, right? And let the experience be the ultimate judge, like how the person that's going to be playing the game or watching the whatever media you're making, like that, let that experience be the judge if that needs another reference or not, you know. And we are Brazilian, and we start to think like, if we put some things that we like and avoid getting inspired in other games and all that, naturally Brazil is going to come naturally because we are Brazilian and all that. And we do believe that, and we lean a little bit on that as well, for making Dandara. And I want to like give you an example of us making a level, like how we think about it. So just really quick, so I can show you what I mean by the game asking for it. So we want to do this first level. The village of artists represents, like, obviously a place where artists live, but not any place. Like, we decided to be inspired in Brazilian culture for that, which limits us a lot and makes us really creative. And it is a place, like, the storyline of the game is a place where oppression is currently going on and has been going on for a while as well. And it was the first real challenge, both in gameplay and narrative for Dandara and all that. So it starts here, and we thought like, okay, ending a boss, and then a friendly NPC as a reward. But it's a little bit, this is a little bit empty, right? You need more people to show that it's a village that is being oppressed, right? To give the hint. So we decided to do like 2 NPCs and the boss, some linear progression. All right, and then we arranged it on the thing, and then like we felt it was too short and ended up too abruptly, and then we added another NPC that gives you a power up. Like respecting pacing. Pacing is important. Pacing is something that asks for more references in the game and all that. So here's what the game is asking for. Like the Village of Artists, it asks for a certain look and feel, right? Has like 3 NPCs, a boss and a final NPC. So let's figure out what references would be best for each of these restrictions. So the look and feel, we started to like get inspired in our own city, what's around us, to get a really different look and feel. We get inspired a lot on favelas, because the favelas like represent it's oppressed people. It represents that in a lot of ways, and the disorganization of how it is really goes well with the anti-gravity thing as well. And artists that come from the favela is really something that's represents oppression everywhere, right? And we get like a lot of graffiti that is made in our cities as a homage as well, like to feel it like this is a village of artists. They're doing art everywhere and all that. I think that was really good. I really liked it. So we get I'm gonna explain the 2 NPCs. Like the first one you meet, like to represent like this is a village of artists. And what's the first thing I think about? What's the first thing I learned about when we talk about artists is a painter. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but the first connection to an artist I had was like painting. Like that was an artist for me. And there's Darcila do Amaral. It's every Brazilian like learns about her. She was really important. She made an art movement. She was spearheading a very really important art movement in Brazil, and she did this painting over here that's called Abaporu, and we made a homage to that. This seems like it was easy, like we just got Tarsila and add to the game really easy, like just like that. But no, this is a fruit of a lot of iteration, trying to do. Tarsila wasn't Tarsila, was named Painter. Then we changed the name Tarsila. Then she was like the same size of Dandara. Then we changed it. Like it was a lot of iteration. But I think this is really good. People from Brazil really get like, yeah, this is a really cool homage, and this is the very first artist Dandara sees, and the very first artist we all see in our lives, kind of in a way when you learn schools. So it all like joins together, and I think it's very beautiful, very poetic thing, which is nice. And the second NPC, we try like who is the second artist that Dandara is gonna visit, for example. And well, we didn't want to do too much classical stuff like artists, like painter and dancer, because it would look like the artists are only the classical stuff. We want to do something modern as well. And musician, like art is not only visual, it can be music as well. So I think the second one should be like that. And we didn't like, we could do a famous composer, a famous DJ from Brazil, but we opted to do like the musician of the game, the own composer of the game, to be a character in that game, representing art as well, because the game is art and all that. I think it's like, it was a lot of iteration. Like the game was, the character was named musician, and we thought about it a lot, talked about it to ourselves, and I think it ended up being kind of beautiful. And that's 2 examples of how we choose up like reference for the game. And wrapping up like all of this, the cultural search, like asking ourselves, what is a Brazilian game? That made us, research different personalities and make something like interesting. it's just research by itself is really good, right? Create something new that's from the ground up, because we got the limitation of needing to be something, so it really makes your creativity work. We avoided getting inspired in other games. That's a really good thing to do. We think about real world problems that people really like empathize with, and you know, that's something like people maybe even reflect, like knowing about Dandara's Palmares and there's a black movement in other countries. Wow, right? Make you reflect. And what's the point of art? Isn't a little bit like making people reflect about the world around them? I know it's like, it's also like making aesthetic pleasure, but it is a bit like provoking players and all that. And I think like having a cultural search is a really good way to do that, to make people reflect. Suddenly, who knows, right? And I'm talking about Brazil all the time, but this has totally been done by Americans in games as well. These are, just four examples of really good American games that talk about America and problems about it and feelings about it, which are really good. I can show you the picture later. And for example, it doesn't have to be the goal of being cultural either. Good example is, damn it, I forgot the name. The guy that wrote The Shining. I used to read him all the time when I was a teenager, right?
Stephen King.
Stephen King, yeah. I used to read, and
have to. He's from my state, so I feel obligated to.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about, because I'm a foreigner, and there's 50 states in America, but I got to know about Maine a lot because of Stephen King. Like I want to go to Maine and see it, right? Because like, and Stephen King doesn't do like stories about Maine or anything. He does like horror stories that happen to be on Maine, and like uses Maine a lot as a to do certain feelings, like to make the characters more interesting, I think, and makes you research about it. And I think this effect is really powerful. That's my point. So I think the cultural perspective and like the thing about coming from another platform and type making are similar parallels to things, because they made this like, it's a fun limitation. It makes you work with work with your creativity, and that's good. And it's a way to do like produce like innovation, not innovation. I hate to say the word innovation nowadays because it's very like entrepreneurship kind of thing. I like to say like novelty on an art sense, because I think it's valuable as an art thing, not just like a way to get money. It is that a little bit of good entrepreneurship as well, but it is a way to do art, right? It's more important than that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, and let's go to questions or anything. If you have any like a spicy question that you need to be, personal, you can like write us on Long Hat House as well, and all that. Thank you everybody. So I'm open for questions.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. That was really nice, Joao.
Yeah,
I'll let anybody else go if they have questions to ask.
Are there games or like other pieces of media that come to mind for you that are about and from different cultures that have spoken to you in the way that you want, or that you want or kind of saw Dandara possibly speaking to other people?
yes. But like one time I talked about, I talked with Lucas about how BoJack Horseman is kind of an American thing that's like really specific and does that. But I think BoJack Horseman's it's like a bad example because it shouldn't be like some non-American thing. But there is, for example, anime. Anime is the main thing, right? Because it touches you. And I don't know if you guys play Persona. Do someone play Persona?
Of course, of course.
Connor loves it.
Yeah, I discovered that Japanese people have to go to school on high school at Saturdays.
Yeah, Saturday
Because of Persona.
school. It's crazy. Yeah, that same here. You learn like so much about like Japanese culture just from like because you have to play as a school kid.
Yeah, and there's another game called Okami. That's a really beautiful game if you like look at the screenshots. That was the game that made me like, is people gonna like this game, Brazilian game, like people from abroad, they're gonna like this? I'm not sure, but Okami was the game that I looked at a lot, and wow, people really like this because I saw an interview with the developer, and he told like the Japanese people didn't care for it too much, but people from abroad loved it. And that's exactly one of the kinds of experience I wanted to make. Not that I wanted Brazilian people to not like it, but I wanted everyone to like it. And Brazilian people really like it because they never see themselves represented on games. And Japanese people see themselves represented on games, come on, all the time. That must be why. Yeah, Okami. But there's other types of media, like movies. There are a lot of damn it, I can only think about Japanese movies. There's this movie called Passages. There's a Japanese movie, and it really sinks in the very cultural thing about like being good at your job. It really sinks in really well. I'm gonna type the name of the movie. And Argentinian movies, but Argentina is so much alike Brazil. But Argentinian movies are really good. They have really good movies. We say like there's a joke here that all the Brazilian directors want secretly to make a game, to make a movie in Argentina because they're so good. And yeah, there's English movies too, right? English books about medieval stuff, knight stuff. Damn it, I got a blank head. I wanted to do like show something really new, but I can only think about American Japanese stuff right now.
That's still very appreciated.
May I jump in with a question real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Awesome. You talked about a lot in your presentation about trying to like avoid video games as like an inspiration tool, which whenever I go about like trying to make a new concept for a game or anything along those lines, I always try to follow those guidelines because I heard it a couple times before. But I find myself also kind of researching games and more of like as a guide for do's and don'ts. Would you still recommend that, or would you find that kind of ends up hurting you in the longer runs of things?
No, I do recommend it. I recommend you to play lots of games and understand what they're about, like study game design, right?
Yeah, that's my major, yeah.
Yeah, and get like by studying game design, you need to be playing a lot of games all the time. But sometimes it's like we were being labeling ourselves as a Metroidvania, and I think I don't like the term Metroidvania too much because it really limits you in a bad way. Like you get really quickly like go to YouTube and Mark Brown's like saying what a good Metroidvania is, you know?
Yeah, that
And
whole
you're
like
like,
guideline, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, should I follow this? But there's like Mark Brown's really good. I really liked his work, for example. He is kind of saying what is right and what is wrong. and that's something you got to avoid as well. But it is good if you are taking an inspiration for games, I guess, when you know you are doing it, and you know this is an inspiration from a game, from this specific game. This is good, I think. Not like getting an inspiration and not being honest about it. You know?
Yeah.
Because that's something you will do all the time without knowing, because we are so accustomed to games. But it's good if you like, this is a game, this is an element from Metroid that I'm trying to, and then you understand it and try to avoid being so much alike or something like that, being more conscious about it. Yeah, I think this was a confusing answer maybe, but
No,
I
that
hope
makes a lot of
answered.
sense. So like really do like get your inspiration from your world around you and what you really love, but still use games as kind of like the tool set of like, yeah, this works, this doesn't. I want to show off this though more than anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of like design baggage on things
Yeah.
that you should totally use. Don't throw that away, yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Yeah, that actually sort of brought to mind a question on my end. You had talked a little bit about like how at one point you were like, oh, you know, maybe let's bring over some enemies from Metroid, but that didn't, but you sort of described that didn't work super well. Because it like the game seems like it was very much designed around the movement concept.
Yeah.
So like, I'm curious about how you then were like, okay, how do we navigate combat in this space with very out there movement?
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a lot of things that we had to figure out what makes combat works, right? Because for example, the shooting from Dandara, I don't know if everybody knows, but there's a range to it. Like there's a very limited range, and in the beginning of the development there wasn't a limit. Like you can snipe out enemies if there was no wall between you. You could just keep shooting at them, and that made everything so easy. And the enemies have like the enemies have to be so much more aggressive for that to work. And the game is hard right now, right? But we really wanted like, oh no, the enemies are like too much for this. So we wanted to make the games more passive, the enemies more passive. In order to do that, we needed the range to like go down. And that's one of the things, for example. But we are always trying to do like an enemy from Metroid. Sometimes they do work when they're really simple, and you really have to like change velocity, I guess, of the enemy and then like tweak that. But one enemy that works is an enemy from Metroid that walks like alongside the walls. That works perfectly, for example. But like an enemy that keeps jumping and randomly jumping around you, like that doesn't work. And most of the Castlevania enemies that wait for you to hit them really close and then jump at you, that doesn't work. Like it basically forces you to like think about everything. That was good.
I think just like even in terms of like pacing, I found it very interesting because I guess bringing back that like comparison to Metroid, but also just like, and again that thing of genre, like right, like I also I like haven't played it. I personally, I mean, you're the expert, but if I were to describe Dandara to someone, I would personally hesitate to call it a Metroidvania. But in comparing it to games like Metroid and Castlevania, those are very much built around the idea of like you attack while you're moving. Like Metroid, you're shooting from all these different angles while running forward, and it's the same deal with Castlevania. Dandara is very much move and then shoot. They are two entirely distinct things.
Yeah. There's a certain rhythm to the battle, but I think like both on Castlevania and Metroid, the battles aren't that important. Like they're treated way less importantly. Like what is really meaningful in that game is the exploration. Talking about Metroid, like Super Metroid has a really kind of janky battle where the enemies are all jumping and like trying to tank them anyway, and you're like shooting and getting damaged. But that's okay. It was just like a, how to say, yeah, it was just like taking some damage because the exploration damages you a little bit. Arthritis. No, that's not the word. I forgot the word for when you like scrape onto something and it gets hot. But yeah, that the design of the game makes it like every battle takes you a little bit from you, and you're like exploring a little bit, and not in the battles themselves. And Dandara is a lot about the rhythm of the battle, the individual challenge, because we are so focused on being a game that needs you to pay attention because of the mobile thing I talked about in the beginning, right? So that's a different feeling as well. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I think especially at that last part, I think I really appreciate sort of that, like, I never really thought about it that way, but that distinction between like sort of, you know, battles as a more minor obstacle that bother you over time, whereas Dandara is very much like each battle is something you need your full attention for, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls in the way of the battles work. Like every enemy means a lot on those games, and like we try to do something that Dandara. If one enemy is kind of hard. If two enemies show up at the same time, it's really hard. And that's something we wanted to do. And the riffing as well, like it looks a bit like Resident Evil. Like that's a big inspiration for us as well. Because like when you enter a door, you see an animation like gives you a riffing between rooms, and every room is very different from each other. We wanted that too. Like if you're paying attention, like every single room do something different in your brain, like makes you think something a little bit at least, but something different. And that's what we wanted to go for. Like every room, like what is the next room gonna be? Because there's no two rooms equal.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's for the question. So yeah, I mean there's the chance I could open up Unity for you guys to see.
I was gonna say, yeah, like I mean, you know, if people are struggling with Team Inc. people, I guess right now what we've got like Eddie and Ella, right? Would you guys be particularly interested in you know, and I guess everybody else, right? In Joao opening up Unity and showing us a little bit of how that goes down.
Yeah, it takes a little while, so we have time for a question, I guess.
Sure, sure, we can definitely chat in between.
I forgot one.
I have a question on a more technical side of things. You
Cool.
mentioned Unity. How would you recommend like that, like long development terms, like working with Unity? Is it kind of buggy or slower? Would you recommend maybe looking at Unreal or some other engines? Like how did it treat you, that development process?
I think every Unity and Unreal are kind of similar in that way, in like in the long term. Like the pros and cons are kind of the same. It's about what you like and what you want from your game. That's more about that than the long term. Because every engine ever, when you like go like 3 years developments and you start like updating in the middle of the development the engine, it's gonna bring you problems always. Maybe that's more about Unity. I didn't make a really lengthy project on Unreal that you need to, but I had a lot of problems about that updating, like going to Unity 5 to Unity 2018 or something like that was pretty hard and has a lot of surprises that you need to change in the game. But maybe Unreal is better than this. I don't know, but I think it's gonna happen. Like I've talked to people like on Unreal that they have the same kind of problems with it.
Yeah, because I see both of them always pop up on my computer saying they have updates. So I'm always
Yeah.
like, sometimes I just don't even update Unity. Do you even recommend like keeping it up to date or like
No.
just saying?
If you didn't launch the game, I recommend you update it all the time that they ask you. For example, there's the way we make the save files that's dependent on the compiler worked. And in the newest Unity, they changed the compiler. So the way we saved suddenly changed. The format of the file, it was different. What that means is if we make a save file on the old Unity, the new game, the new build on the newer Unity wouldn't be able to read it. So
Oh, no.
if you update the Unity, everyone loses their save files. So we are like stuck on this version of Unity forever.
Wow.
So launch, when you're gonna launch, update the and face it, like fight against it, because it's gonna be way worse to fight when the game is launched. That's my advice. But yeah, like choosing an engine, always feel like you should do what your team is capable of, because Unreal, it's like nice graphics and everything, but you should be able to like animate and model to go with that, right?
Yeah, I find
So,
Unreal is just pretty out of the box, but Unity, if you put a little work into it, you can really make something amazing to look at, I find.
yeah, and has that if you don't treat Unity Unreal too well, it's gonna get the Mario on Unreal vibes, right?
Oh yeah. It gets to that level and then it's no longer fun anymore.
Yes. But yeah, you can do something really beautiful and real too. That depends on your team, depends on what you're gonna do. And there are other things like Godot.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Godot, no one knows how to say it. It's all over the place.
If it's Godot, I think that's Godot for
Godot.
French. But
I've seen people pronounce it just like that. And it's good because it's open source. I like open source. I think we should be valuing more open source things. Unity just opened here, so I can show you guys something about the game. I didn't really like prepare anything, you know.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine if you. Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with, obviously. You just mentioned it, so I was like, hey.
Comfortable in showing pretty much everything. I'd like to know what do you guys want to see, like behind the scenes. If you have any thing you want to see specifically, that's a good question to do. But I mean,
Eddie, Ella, you guys are kind of the and Joseph, I suppose. But if any of you have thoughts,
let me see.
Maybe would it be possible to talk a little bit about the art and animation, if that's okay, unless other people have other things that they wanted to.
The animation. Okay, we can talk about that. So, just want to see like how the game is built. Like this is a map of the game. If you click here on the door, you can go to the next scene. See, I just want to show like the game is actually 3D. Some things that's interesting. It's like an
whoa, that's really interesting.
Like, whoa, I can see what's in there. Because to get the parallax effect, it's way easier to just use 3D, you know. But there's an Easter egg here that nobody never sees. You have to like to be reading the end of the game and return to this room, and then you see this. So yeah, let's talk about animation. So animation is done on a. You want to see animation, can be any character, or you have a specific character, like a player character or something like that.
Oh, just anything.
All right, so let's bouncer. No. Ball. Because I forgot the names of the enemies. That's cool, right? Let me see. Yes, this. Ready to use. Right. And we get a really cool enemy that I can show you guys. Ghost Soldier, that's cool. What's its name? On the. All right. All right. So we use this program called Sprite. You guys know Sprite. It is a pixel art game, right? So Victor, I'm not the animator. I was the pixel artist really in the beginning of the game. I was doing code and art at the same time. And my art is nothing like this. It's horrible compared. So you can see like we have all these different animations. You see like off, on. That's a way we made animations. Like everything that shut off and shut. Kind of was like a switch. A lot of stuff was like that. So we animated with the names of if it was a switch, like when the enemy was off, it wasn't like the AI wasn't working. There was the animation for it, and then it was going to be on. There was this animation, then it was like idling, it was on, and single is when like the enemy does an attack, and before the attack. So all of the enemies are named like that. So you can program it based on the names as well. Be really easy on us. So yeah, if you wanted to do another frame, that's not another frame. This is another frame. Yeah, and that's it. So I'm just gonna Control Z and I can draw on it. Ah, I'm on the wrong layer. Yeah, like this. That is basically our pipeline for doing animations. Using this program, we have that's a really cool art thing. No, I don't think that's cool anymore. But we had this. The name is pixel art, right? So pixel art is really important that you conserve your colors. If you make any color, any element, any color, is gonna look like a bootleg really quick. So we have this file where we like hold our colors and the relationship between them all the time. And for example, we have two sets of colors, this one and this one. This one is like background colors when the elements shouldn't be touchable, shouldn't look like it. You can touch it, it's just background, whatever. Then it would only have to use these colors. But if it's an enemy, if it's Dandara, then it would have to use these colors. So like they stand out on top of these ones. That is one of the techniques. Like we're really worried about people not being able to see what they can like. What is a hitbox? What is is this enemy like interactable? Whatever. And that's a way we did it. I like it, but Victor always like, damn, I hate this. So I'm not sure if it's a programmer kind of solution, right? But that's basically it. And we have like a program that exports these animations to Unity seamlessly. So we never go to Unity, do something there, or else we're gonna break it. So the artist can only work on one program, and that's fine. Oh wow. And yeah, it took a long time to get to this. We use a lot of other programs, and when we change it, we have to like change everything that we already done and really work on that. But I think it's in the end was really make you learn a lot, right? Anything more? Maybe you want to see like sound, how we test it.
Yeah, how does like Unity 2D sound work in like the greatest ways?
We use a lot of 3D sounds actually.
Oh, really?
And I programmed it all, but I don't recommend anybody do that. It is just worse than everything else for no reason.
So you recommend like Unity's basic 3D audio rather than just like going through the headache of making your own?
No, that's what I did. I used Unity's basic 3D audio, but you need to do like a system where if the music loops and has an introduction, right?
Yeah.
That's never gonna loop anymore. You have to program that here. So that's what I did. And that's like the music, the composer Thomas, you saw him. He's in the game. He asked all kinds of stuff that I didn't really think he was going to ask. Like, fade out this music and then play another thing. Fade out with this effect, please. And I like, just use Fmod. You know, there's like programs that just like the artist is gonna like mess up in here. There's programs where the musician can do that and program their own music, like using all kinds of effects and export it to Unity. And you just need to tell the program like the positions of the songs. And the very first play you give in the Unity of the day, I don't know why, it's super slow. I think it's because of how we did Dandara. We didn't separate the code in assemblies, something that's really gonna do. And I think it compiles everything. There you go. So you see, just a second. My USB bus just broke yesterday.
Oh no.
So I'm just removing things from the bus. Adding it again. Let's see. Sorry guys, I didn't really prepare for any of this. So yeah, I can like jump here and you can see like the instances of the sounds. Can you see it? Like there's a lot of sounds that's going on when Dandara jumps. Like there's like a little shining thing on her leg that does like a bling bling this kind of sound. Maybe there's like a random chance of it happening. And there's all the cloth sounds. And we keep like instantiating the sounds, putting sounds files on it. That's the kind of thing I made, and it's worse than Fmod. That's what I mean. like object pooling. That's a bit technical and all that with it.
How difficult was it to sort of like set limits on where you can like travel exactly? Like one of the things I've noticed while playing is that like your pointer for where you jump has sort of a limited range.
Yeah, because the first thing that we wanted to do is like not have Dandara jump, make leap of faith all the time. Like jump from there to here, like, and not know like if there's an enemy there. We want to limit that soon, right? The other problem is the white strips, right? There's like predetermined places where you can jump to, and that's important because like in the very first version of the game, you could jump here. You see, in the little ledge over here.
Oh.
And that's a problem because if Dandara is there, she cannot jump. Like, I probably want to make this jump, right? But I ended up accidentally jumping here. Then I would be like in this position. I can't jump inside the ground. There's no way. So I need to do like go back and then to go forward all the time.
So
you are like jumping really fast and then, oh damn it, I need to go back and then go first. Ah damn it, I need to go back. And that was really boring. So with the white things, we could like avoid the player not wanting to going where they don't want to go and just going.
So that's really interesting. So like the whole mechanic of like the only being able to move on the salt kind of, it sounds like it came somewhat out of necessity rather than like, oh, this was planned from the beginning.
Exactly. And we wanted like to be really visible. So white was visible, and we could put like black borders over it. And this is really small, so we could do like dark gray shade of borders into it. So you always see where they are, and they needed to be white. So like this gave us the inspiration to make the word called salt. That's where it came from. So if you see, the game is designing itself even narratively. So yeah, it's a good thing. But it's not like I said, it's not like a overnight thing, like a really quick thing. It's always like changing things and being really disappointed in yourself that something that you like working on 2 weeks is not gonna be in the game and all that. I have this really big puzzle that I was really proud of. Levers and walls. I don't know if it's playable, but you see, that's like a really crude version of it. It's a really big level. We spent like 3 weeks doing this. It's like if you go to a lever here, a lot of stuff in the screen happens, and you need to discover that you need to go to this path. It was a lot of convoluted puzzle, and we ended up shelving it. Really sad day. But it's still here, like, yay.
I feel like it visually kind of reminds me of one of the maps in the game, but I guess there's so many that.
There's so many, yes. But it is like the same kind of map that the last level I showed with the tent and everything. The same kind of tile set, which is the bits and pieces for the maps, which is something I can show you as well. That's cool. Let's show another area, I guess. Come on, load boys. Oh yeah, there's another area. has this really cool like kind of ads for the Eldar, the villain of the game, and I like it because it's in Portuguese. Like seja means be, just be, you know, be something like shallow like that, like a perfume kind of ad. Because the villain's trying to like tell you how you should live your life or something like that. That's the meaning, one of the meanings of the game. I'm spoiling. But yeah, there's this level here. It's a different one. And I want to show it to you guys. It's gonna load. Hey, here. School level, there's like introduction of an enemy, there's this. All right. And how did the level like in background? This is it. How the level looks like. Before we do the enemies, you put the enemies in and all that. We use this program called Tiled. I wouldn't use it today, but at the time it was really good. Because Unity has this built-in right now. But it is kind of like that. We would like get the ground, put something here, get the white sand. I still remember how to do this. Look, wow, amazing. And then it's really like a therapeutic, I think. It's really like Zen thing. You put like these squares. Make sure it isn't like have any holes on it and anything, and then you export it. That's how we did all the levels. And then in Unity, in this kind of place in here, we put on the enemies. So it's like a two-step kind of thing. Like if I wanted this guy to be more on the left, where? You know? That's, and like the guy has code, like this a code I made for the behavior of this, not a code, you know. That's mostly how the bits of pieces of the game are. This is a Humble source as well. Rumble is like, Switch has the HD Rumble thing.
Oh yeah.
And we had this idea of making Dandara have a sixth sense, where there was danger, the controller would vibrate on the direction of the danger nearby. So this is the rumble distance over here for this enemy. So it has a lot of stuff in this game, right?
Did that make it into the final Switch version?
Yes, but it's so subtle.
Interesting. You know, I'd have to look into that because, like,
I think the very best thing of the rumble on the Switch is when like Dandara really charges it. It's working on this controller a bit. It's worse on this controller, but it's working. Like you feel like, wow, she just charged it, and I really like that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what? Why we did this? It's because like there was our publisher could make us be on the Nindies, like live stream. And in the very first Nindies, it was like huge for us, like the second game on the live Nindies. It was amazing. And the guy said like, Dandara with support for HD Rumble. And now I saw that my camera was pointing to my controller. Sorry guys. And then there was like HD Rumble. HD Rumble support, and we're like, what? We didn't know anything about it, but let's do it. Let's do it and make it perfect, like the best. And we like spent a lot of time working on this just because the dude said, good times, I guess. And That's pretty much it. If you want to see something else, sound, I guess it showed.
I was curious about how like navigating like porting all this to consoles worked. Did it come sort of naturally? Was it the work? Was that mostly the work of the publisher, or?
The publisher did help a lot with that. They hired another company to do the PS3 and Xbox, PS4 and Xbox One ports. So that's okay, but we did the Switch ports ourselves. And we went to GDC, that's an event on San Francisco. Like, it was the first time we were in the first ninjas. That was crazy. That was crazy couple of days for us. And we were going to San Francisco. I never went to the US before. And we were there, and we could get the Switch because Nintendo doesn't ship for the South Hemisphere ever. Dev kits, only Australia. Australia they do, but that's it. They used to. Now they do. Now it changed. The words changes a little bit. Now they do, but at the time they didn't, and we had to travel and smuggle a dev kit in the plane with us. I'm super glad that went very well because the dev kit really looks like just an ordinary Switch, and we could like work on the game from home and all that. Yeah, that's crazy. And but the worst thing to port to was Apple, because I have a really iOS things. I love it. I love how they treated us as a storefront, but I have a really old Mac that I had to use it, and it was like a nightmare whenever I had to do something with it. That's fine. PS4, everything's fine, but going to the Mac and making a build was like, oh my god, because it's so old. But okay, yeah, it's great. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's a really nice look at Unity. Unless anybody else had
Unity
anything
helps a lot
specific they wanted.
as well. Like there's a lot of people that's like trying to do their own engine, right? And that's a big problem that you're gonna face. Like Unity has like the Xbox One things over here, PS4. They do it. You have to do. They do the majority of the work. You have to do some work still, of course. Like there's design work that's specific for each console, but that saves you a lot of time. And Android, all of that saves you like your life, basically. If you do it in your own engine, it's gonna be too much work. I mean, for 2 people, 3 people, right? They're also doing the design. So I like people doing their own engine. I think that's really cool, but they're gonna stumble on that for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I think that's plenty for Unity. I mean, that was really cool. At least I think getting to look at that.
Yeah, I really like. I saw a developer do this once, like going really free on the Unity and opening up and showing free flow. I really liked it. So trying to do the same. So yeah, thanks everybody. But we can keep talking.
You.
There's no problem. I'm all yours.
Oh. It's like, there we go. Right, you're back to normal. Yeah. I mean, I guess at this point, I would just say, does anybody have any more questions? Yeah, and if not, that's totally fine.
It's totally fine. If you have further question, like I said, like a personal question, a very spicy question, or just a question that you didn't remember, just go to the Long Hat House. There's like a contact page. I read every email. Just do it.
Yeah, no. Well, if that's the case, I think we can call it here. But Joao, thank you so much for coming. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to me ramble about these things. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me too.
Absolutely. We were so glad to have you, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, when the pandemic stops and then you can do the personal things and call people from abroad, like.
Oh no,
awesome.
we will have you in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, it is very hard to do that. I understand. But that would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, all right. To everyone, thank you very much for coming. Yeah.
Well, especially thank you if you come to a lot of these spring speaker events. Oh, sorry, Ella, you can say what you wanted.
Oh no, I was just saying thank you so much for talking to us.
Uh,
All right. Thank you for listening to me again. I'm honored. All that.
We're honored to have you.
Yes.
Had a great time.
Indeed. All right.
So,
well, everybody, thanks again, and take care.
See you. Have a nice Friday.